phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
What do YouTube? B Kelly back again with another banger video. In today's video, y'all, I'm going to be talking about what happened to the past 10 number 1 ranked tight ends from the 2011 to 2020 recruiting class. And for this video, I'm going to be using the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. Now let's get on to the video. In the 2011 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was a 5-star recruit by the name of OLeary. He ranked as the 27th best player nationally, and he would end up going to Florida State. In his freshman season as a Seminole, OLeary would play in all 13 games, but he would not exactly get the most targets. He had 12 receptions this season for 164 yards and 1 touchdown. In 2012, as a sophomore, he would get more targets and he would play better as he had 21 receptions for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. In his junior campaign in 2013, OLeary was a very key part of that Florida State team that would end up winning the national championship this season. In this season, he would end up racking up 557 receiving yards, averaging a very impressive 17 yards per reception and 7 touchdowns. In his senior campaign in the 2014 college football season, OLeary would end up playing in 13 games for the Seminoles, where he ended up getting 618 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, his career was over as a member of Florida State's football team as he was a senior, and he would end his career with 1,591 yards of receiving and 17 receiving touchdowns. He would end up getting drafted in the 6th round of the 2015 NFL Draft by the Buffalo Bills. OLeary would spend 6 years in the NFL, from 2015 to 2019. Now, in his career, he has 668 career receiving yards and 4 career receiving touchdowns. He would spend 3 seasons in Buffalo, 1.5 seasons in Miami, and the rest of that half season for 2019 in Jacksonville. Now, going into the 2020 offseason, he would sign with the Oakland Raiders, but he would never actually suit up with them as he had to get surgery on his heart, and people thought he was going to retire, but right now he is actually a free agent for the 2021 NFL season. In the 2012 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation goes by the name of Kent Taylor, and he was ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 77th best player in the nation nationally, and he would end up going to Florida. In Kent Taylor's freshman season at Florida, he would only play in 7 games where he got 2 receptions for 5 yards and 1 touchdown. In 2013, as a sophomore, he would not appear in a single game, and after that season, he would transfer to Kansas where he had to sit out the full 2014 season. In 2015, in his junior campaign at Kansas, he would play in 8 games where he recorded 15 receptions, 179 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. After his one lone season at Kansas, he would transfer yet again, but this time it would be for his final year of college football, and he would end up going to UTEP. In his senior campaign, he would play in 8 games for UTEP, where he recorded 8 receptions for 50 yards and 0 touchdowns. In the 2017 NFL Draft, he went undrafted, but shortly after the draft, he was signed by the Carolina Panthers. His NFL career, however, would end very quickly right after he got picked up, as he would end up getting suspended for the first 4 games of the regular season for violating the PED's policy for the NFL. Coming out of the 2013 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was O.J. Howard, who ranked as a 5-star recruit and was the 19th best player nationally, and he would end up going to Alabama. In O.J. Howard's freshman and sophomore year, he really wasn't the most notable player on the team as he was kind of stuck with a bunch of elite weapons around him pretty much his entire career at Alabama, but in his first couple seasons, he still had a couple decent seasons. In his junior campaign, however, his production went way up, and he was a very vital part to that 2015 national championship winning squad that Alabama had. In this season, he had 38 receptions for 602 yards, averaging 16 yards per reception and 2 touchdowns. As a senior in the 2016 season, they would make it to the national championship yet again, but they would fall to Clemson this time. And in this season, he had 595 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. After his senior campaign at Alabama, O.J. Howard would end up getting drafted in the 2017 NFL Draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round with the 19th overall pick. When O.J. Howard got to Tampa Bay for his rookie season, he was an immediate impact player. He would start in all 14 games he played in 2017, where he had 26 receptions for 432 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. In 2018, he had his best season where in only 10 games he had 565 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2019, he had 459 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. And in 2020, the year that the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, unfortunately, O.J. Howard would only play in 4 games due to injury issues, but he would end up racking up 11 receptions for 146 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Although he has not made a Pro Bowl in his career yet, O.J. Howard has been a very consistent tight end his entire career, and in my opinion, one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL. In the 2014 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was Dalton Schultz, who ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 101st best player in the nation nationally, and he would end up going to Stanford. Dalton Schultz would spend 4 seasons at Stanford, where in his freshman season he would not appear in a single game. For his career, he would have 55 receptions for 555 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. In the 2018 NFL Draft, he was drafted in the 4th round by the Dallas Cowboys. As a rookie with the Dallas Cowboys in 2018, Dalton would have a pretty decent season with the amount of production he actually had. On only 17 targets, he had 12 receptions for 116 yards and 0 touchdowns. But in 2019, he was a backup altogether, and he literally had 1 reception for 6 yards. But in 2020, as a huge shocker, he would have a breakout season where in 16 games played, he had 615 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. The future is definitely bright for Dalton Schultz as a Dallas Cowboy. In the 2015 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was Elise Mack, who was a 4-star recruit and the 63rd best player in the nation, and he would end up going to Notre Dame. As a freshman in 2015, Elise Mack would record 13 receptions for 190 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. In 2016, he would sit out the season but practice with the team, and in 2017, as a junior, he would end up racking up 166 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. In 2018, in his senior campaign, he would have 36 receptions for 360 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Mack would end up getting drafted in the 7th round of the 2019 NFL Draft by the New Orleans Saints. Since the 2019 NFL season, Mack has been on the Saints, Steelers, and Chiefs practice squads from 2019 to 2020, and recently he has signed with the Detroit Lions. Coming out of the 2016 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was Isaac Nauta, who ranked as a 5-star recruit and the 14th best player in the nation, and he would end up going to Georgia. Isaac Nauta would spend 3 seasons at Georgia, where he would have 68 receptions for 905 yards, averaging 13 yards per reception, and 8 touchdowns. His best season came in his junior campaign in 2018. We had 430 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. He would forgo his final year of eligibility at Georgia and declare his name for the 2019 NFL Draft, where he was taken in the 7th round by the Lions. Isaac Nauta, these past 2 years in his NFL career, has been on and off the Lions practice squad, and he's played in 13 games in 2 seasons, where he has 3 receptions for 16 yards. He was released by the Lions recently, and he did sign with the Packers. The number 1 tight end in the class of 2017 was Colby Parkinson. He ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 36th best player in the nation, and he would end up going to Stanford. Colby Parkinson would play 3 seasons at Stanford, where he would have 87 receptions for 1,171 yards and 12 touchdowns. His best season was in 2018 as a sophomore, where he had 485 receiving yards, averaging a very impressive 17 yards per reception and 7 touchdowns. He would forgo his final year of eligibility at Stanford and declare his name for the 2020 NFL Draft, where he was taken in the 4th round by the Seattle Seahawks. In Colby Parkinson's rookie season and the 2020 NFL season, he would have a very injury-riddled year where he only played in 6 games and he recorded 2 receptions for 16 yards. In the 2018 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was Brenden Jordan, who ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 33rd best player in the nation. He would end up going to Miami. Brenden Jordan would spend 3 seasons at Miami, where he would have 105 total receptions for 1,358 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns in his career. His best season by far was this past 2020 college football season as a junior, where he had 576 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. He would forgo his final year of college eligibility for the 2021 college football season and declare his name for the 2021 NFL Draft. In the 2019 recruiting class, the number 1 tight end in the nation was Baylor Cup, who ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 53rd best player in the nation, and he would end up going to Texas A&M. Baylor Cup has yet to appear in a game for the Texas A&M Aggies so far. In 2019, he suffered an ankle injury that made him miss the season and take a medical redshirt, and in 2020, he got injured again in fall camp that made him miss the entire 2020 college football season. The number 1 tight end in the 2020 recruiting class is Eric Gilbert, who ranked as a 5-star recruit and the 5th best player nationally, and he would end up going to LSU. Gilbert in the 2020 college football season as a freshman would have a very good year, as he had 368 receiving yards on 35 receptions and 2 touchdowns. But he is currently in the transfer portal, even though he is rumored to go back to LSU. Well guys, now that you have made it to the end of the video, remember to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly, out.